Hello, I'm Dr. William Schlosser. You know me as an economist. You may also know me as an ecologist. But more than anything, you're going to know me as an educator. I'm Dr. Bill, and I welcome you to my classroom. In this chapter, we will deepen our understanding of macroeconomic indicators by examining how to measure unemployment and inflation. These indicators are fundamental in assessing the health of the economy and guiding economic policy. We will start by exploring the different types of unemployment: frictional, structural, and cyclical, to learn how each type affects the economy. Next, we will discuss the methods used to measure unemployment, including the unemployment rate and the labor force participation rate. On the inflation side, we will look into demand pull and cost push inflation, and the various tools used to measure inflation, such as the Consumer Price Index, CPI, the Producer Price Index, PPI, and the Personal Consumption Expenditure, PCE. Finally, we will consider the broader implications of these measures, including how they influence policy decisions. By the end of the chapter, you will be well equipped to understand and discuss these critical economic concepts. John Deere, the world's largest seller of tractors and crop harvesters, has announced another wave of layoffs impacting around 610 production staff at plants in Illinois and Iowa. This move follows recent trends in the company's operational strategy, which includes significant cost-cutting measures and shifting some production overseas. The layoffs, effective from August 30, 2024, will see around 280 workers let go from the plant in East Moline, Illinois, 230 from the factory in Davenport, Iowa, and about 100 from the Dubuque, Iowa plant. These cuts are attributed to reduced demand for John Deere's products from these facilities, despite the company's generating $10.166 billion in profits last year. John Deere's leadership has communicated that rising operational costs and declining market demand necessitate these enterprise-wide changes to align the company's goals and best position for the future. Affected workers will receive supplemental unemployment benefits, SUBs, covering about 95% of their weekly net pay for up to 26 weeks, alongside profit-sharing options and health benefits. Earlier this month, John Deere also announced plans to move the manufacturing of skid steer loaders and compact tractor loaders from its Dubuque facility to Mexico by the end of 2026. This decision aims to optimize factory operations, address rising manufacturing costs, and improve operational efficiencies. In addition to the current layoffs, John Deere has seen multiple rounds of workforce reductions over the past year. This includes the first wave of 225 layoffs at its harvester work plant of its Moline Cylinder Works factory, and 150 workers let go in March from a plant in Ankeny, Iowa. Approximately 500 employees have been affected by its Waterloo plant in Iowa. Despite these measures, John Deere continues to face criticism from its workforce. A longtime employee at the harvester work plant attributed the layoffs to corporate greed, expressing concerns over increasing uncertainty among the staff. As of mid-May, John Deere and Company's market capitalization stood around $102.81 billion, with $27.42 billion in net sales and revenues over the first 2 quarters of the year. However, the company has recently trimmed its annual profit forecast for the second time, projecting steeper declines in sales of large agricultural equipment. This ongoing situation at John Deere highlights the broader economic themes of unemployment and inflation, offering a real-time case study on how companies navigate financial pressures and operational shifts in response to market conditions. Each month, the U.S. Bureau of the Census conducts the Current Population Survey to collect data needed to compute the monthly unemployment rate. The Department of Labor's Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS, uses these data to calculate the unemployment rate. People are considered employed if they worked during the week before the survey, or if they were temporarily away from their jobs. People are considered unemployed if they did not work in the previous week, but were available for work and had actively looked for work during the previous 4 weeks. The unemployment rate is a key economic indicator, reflecting the percentage of the labor force that is unemployed and actively seeking employment. Each month, the U.S. Bureau of the Census conducts the Current Population Survey, commonly referred to as the Household Survey. This survey covers around 60,000 households that are selected to represent the broader U.S. population. The survey focuses on household members who are 16 years or older and gathers data about their employment status during a specific reference week. Additionally, it asks about any recent job search activities. Based on these responses, individuals are classified into 3 main categories. Employed. This includes people who worked at least 1 hour during the reference week, or those who were temporarily away from their jobs due to reasons such as vacation, illness, or personal reasons. Unemployed. These are individuals who are not working during the reference week, but were available for work and had actively looked for work within the previous 4 weeks. Not in the labor force. This group comprises people who are neither employed nor unemployed. They might be retired, students, homemakers, or discouraged workers who have stopped looking for work because they believe no jobs are available for them. The labor force is the sum of employed and unemployed workers in the economy. The unemployment rate is the percentage of the labor force that is unemployed. Understanding these classifications helps us grasp the dynamics of unemployment and the overall health of the economy. Let's break down the categories of the U.S. labor market as of July 2024 to understand the broader context. The total working age population is 268.2 million people. This group includes all individuals aged 16 and older who are not institutionalized or on active duty in the military. Within this working age population, we have 2 main groups, those in the labor force and those not in the labor force. So, labor force, 167.7 million people. Employed, 161.5 million. These are individuals who have jobs. This includes both full-time and part-time workers, as well as those who are temporarily away from their jobs due to vacation, illness, or other reasons. Unemployed, 6.2 million. These are individuals who do not have jobs but are actively looking for work and are available to start work. The unemployment rate is calculated as the percentage of the population that is unemployed. Not in the labor force, 100.5 million. Not available for work, 58.7 million. This group includes individuals who are not seeking employment and are not available to work. This category can include retirees, students, homemakers, and those who are unable to work due to a disability. Available for work but not currently working, 41.8 million. This group includes individuals who would like to work but are not actively seeking employment for various reasons. Within this category, we can identify 2 specific subgroups. In economics, a discouraged worker is a person of legal employment age who is not actively seeking employment or does not find employment after a long-term unemployment. This is usually because the individual has given up looking for work or has had no success in finding a job. Hence, the term discouraged. Not currently looking due to childcare or transportation problems, 2.7 million. These individuals are not seeking employment because they are facing specific barriers such as the lack of childcare or transportation issues that prevent them from being able to work. Understanding these categories helps us gain a clearer picture of the labor market dynamics and the challenges faced by different groups within the working age population. It is crucial to recognize that the official unemployment rate does not capture the full extent of underemployment or those who are marginally attached to the labor force. Let's break down the categories of U.S. labor market as of 2024 to understand the broader context. The total working age population is 268.2 million people. This group includes all individuals aged 16 and older who are not institutionalized or on active duty in the military. Within this working age population, we have two main groups, those in the labor force and those who are not in the labor force. The labor force is 167.7 million. These are employed people, 161.5 million. These are individuals who have jobs. This includes both full-time and part-time workers, as well as those who are temporarily away from their jobs due to vacation, illness, or other reasons. Unemployed people, 6.2 million. These individuals do not have jobs but are actively looking for work and are available to start working anytime. The unemployment rate is calculated as a percentage of the labor force that is unemployed using these numbers. This 3.7% unemployment rate is substantially below the sustainable unemployment rate. We need to look closer at these numbers to accurately understand. Closely related to the unemployment rate is the labor force participation rate. This is the size of the labor force divided by the working age population. This begins the process of expressing not just the unemployment rate, but also the employment population ratio, which is the percentage of the working age population that is employed. On this screen, we can see how this restates the 3.7% unemployment rate seen earlier into the unemployment population ratio of 60.23%. These reports give substantially different estimates of the economy, but both accurately report the data as analyzed. The labor force participation rate is the labor force, 167.7 million, divided by the working age population, 268.2 million, which gives us the 62.53%. In the current economic landscape, over 4 million Americans are classified as involuntarily part-time workers. These individuals are working part-time not by choice but due to economic reasons, such as reduced hours or the inability to find full-time employment. This number serves as a critical indicator of the labor market's slack and unmet potential. It highlights the challenges faced by many workers who are underemployed and underscores the need for policies that address these gaps. While the unemployment rate provides one view of joblessness, considering the number of involuntarily part-time workers offers a deeper understanding of the economic conditions affecting the workforce. The unemployment rate, as measured by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the BLS, is not a perfect measure of joblessness. There are several reasons for this. First, the unemployment rate may misstate the level of unemployment. One key issue is distinguishing between people who are unemployed and those who are not in the labor force, such as discouraged workers. Should these workers be excluded from the unemployment count? Additionally, the unemployment rate only measures whether people are employed or unemployed, not the intensity of their employment. For example, it does not differentiate between full-time and part-time employment. Some individuals are underemployed, meaning they may be working part-time jobs despite wanting full-time work, often accepting lower pay just to make ends meet. On the other hand, the unemployment rate may also overstate joblessness. Some individuals might falsely claim to be actively looking for work to remain eligible for unemployment benefits or other government programs. Others may claim not to be working to evade taxes or keep criminal activities unnoticed. These issues show that while the unemployment rate provides a useful snapshot of the labor market, it is not without its limitations. It is important to consider these factors when interpreting unemployment data to get a more accurate picture of joblessness in this economy. When we discuss the labor market, it's crucial to understand that the official unemployment rate, U3, only captures part of the overall unemployment picture. The U3 rate, currently at 3.6%, includes people who are without jobs and have actively looked for work over the past 4 weeks. However, this measure does not account for those who have become discouraged and stopped looking for work, nor does it include those who are underemployed, working part-time because they cannot find full-time employment. To provide a more comprehensive view, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS, calculates the U6 rate, which is a broader measure of unemployment. The U6 rate includes all persons counted in the U3 rate, marginally attached workers who are not currently in the labor force but want and are available for work, and have looked for a job sometime in the past 12 months. Discouraged workers are a subset of the marginally attached, who have given up looking for work because they believe no jobs are available for them. People who are employed part-time for economic reasons. Those who would prefer full-time employment but have had to settle for part-time hours. As of now, the U6 rate stands at 7.4%, which is significantly higher than the official unemployment rate. This difference highlights the underemployment and marginally attached issues within the labor market. Understanding these alternative measures is critical because they provide a fuller picture of the economic landscape. The U6 rate helps policymakers and economists assess the real health of the labor market, considering not just those actively seeking work, but also those whose economic needs are not fully met by the current employment situation. This broader perspective can lead to more effective policies aimed at improving job opportunities and economic well-being for all segments of the population. The labor force participation rate provides important insights into the availability of labor and the overall economic productivity of the country. Historically, the participation rate has seen significant shifts due to various socioeconomic factors. Since 1948, the labor force participation rate of adult men has experienced a gradual decline. This trend can be attributed to several factors, including the aging population, increased enrollment in higher education, and early retirement options. Additionally, structural changes in the economy, such as the decline in manufacturing jobs traditionally held by men, have also played a role. Conversely, the labor force participation rate of adult women has seen a sharp increase. This significant rise began around the 1960s and 1970s, coinciding with the women's liberation movement, increased access to higher education for women, and the growing availability of jobs in sectors like healthcare and education, which traditionally employed more women. This shift has led to a higher overall labor force participation rate compared to the past. In 1948, the overall labor force participation rate was about 59%. By 2012, this labor rate had risen to approximately 57% for women and 68% for men, reflecting these demographic and societal changes. Understanding these trends helps us gauge the potential labor supply and anticipate future economic growth and policy needs. Understanding the unemployment rates among different ethnic and educational groups provides important context for the broader economic conditions and labor market dynamics. The first chart on this slide highlights the unemployment rates among different ethnic groups. Asians have the lowest unemployment rate at 2.9%, which could be influenced by various factors, including a higher tendency to accept lower-paying jobs, or perhaps higher educational attainment and job placement rates. Whites follow with a 3.5% unemployment rate, which may indicate moderate job security and acceptance of rates for compensation in the labor market. Hispanics and Latinos have a higher rate at 5%, and African Americans show the highest rate at 6.1%, possibly reflecting selectivity in job acceptance, compensation expectations, or systemic challenges in the job market. The second chart emphasizes the importance of education in securing employment. Individuals without a high school diploma face a 6% unemployment rate, whereas those with a high school diploma see a reduced rate at 4%. The rate further decreases for those with an associate's degree, 3.5%, and significantly drops to 2% for bachelor's degree holders. Doctoral degree recipients enjoy the lowest unemployment rate, under 1%, underscoring the value of advanced education in enhancing job security and employability. These charts help to underscore the importance of both education and understanding the nuanced factors that contribute to unemployment rates among different demographic groups. While these statistics are often used to assess economic health, it is crucial to consider the underlying factors, such as education levels and individual job market behaviors that influence these rates. In the modern U.S. economy, the typical unemployed person stays unemployed for a relatively brief period of time, although that time lengthens significantly during recessions. For instance, during the Great Depression in the 1930s, some people were unemployed for years at a time, leading to significant economic hardships and societal distress. Since World War II, average lengths of unemployment have generally been relatively low. However, the 2007-09 recession dramatically changed this trend. The average duration of unemployment soared to unprecedented levels during this period, reflecting the severe economic downturn and slow recovery. In mid-2013, the average period of unemployment was 36 weeks. This was a significant increase from the pre-recession averages, which typically ranged from 10 to 20 weeks, averaging around 15 weeks. By May 2024, the duration of unemployment had dropped to about 27 weeks, indicating some improvement but still longer than pre-recession norms. Long periods of unemployment are particularly detrimental to workers, as their skills may decay and they risk becoming discouraged and depressed. The longer someone is unemployed, the harder it can become to re-enter the workforce, which creates a vicious cycle of unemployment and underemployment. Therefore, understanding and addressing the factors contributing to prolonged unemployment is crucial for policymakers and economists. In summary, while the typical duration of unemployment has seen fluctuations based on economic conditions, recent trends show a decline from the peak levels seen during 2007-09 recession. This highlights both the resilience and challenges within the U.S. labor market, emphasizing the need for continued efforts to reduce unemployment duration and support those affected by joblessness. The employment-to-population ratio is a crucial macroeconomic statistic that indicates the proportion of the working-age population that is employed. This ratio provides a clearer picture of the labor market's health and the economy's capacity to create jobs. Historically, the employment-to-population ratio remained below 59% until about 1975, reflecting various economic challenges. However, it peaked in 2000, reaching nearly 65%, which was beneficial for workers and the overall economy. In the period leading up to the COVID recession, the ratio stood at 61.1% in early 2020. The onset of the pandemic caused a dramatic drop to 51.2% in April 2020, highlighting the severe impact of the crisis on employment. Since then, there has been a recovery, with the ratio climbing back to 60.1% by May 2024. This recovery, while significant, still reflects ongoing challenges in the labor market as the economy adjusts post-recession. Understanding these trends helps economists and policymakers gauge the economy's recovery progress and formulate strategies to support continued improvements in employment levels. The BLS employs the Establishment Survey, commonly referred to as the payroll survey, to gauge total employment within the economy. This monthly survey samples around 300,000 business establishments, gathering data on the total number of individuals employed on company payrolls. Despite its drawbacks, such as excluding self-employed individuals and newly opened firms, and providing only employment data, the Establishment Survey has significant advantages. The data collected are based on actual payroll records, offering a more reliable and concrete measure compared to the self-reported data from the Household Survey. Due to its reliability, many economists and analysts favor the Establishment Survey for assessing labor market conditions. The detailed industry-specific employment data it provides are invaluable for understanding employment trends and making informed economic decisions. Personally, this survey is one of my primary data sources when evaluating employment rates at various levels, be it state, regional, national, or even international. Its robustness and accuracy make it an essential tool for economic analyses and policymaking. By leveraging both the household and establishment surveys, we can achieve a comprehensive view of the labor market ensuring that our analyses and policies are well informed and effective. In this slide, we compare the data from the household and establishment surveys for April and May 2024. As you can see in the table, there are differences in the reported numbers for employed persons between the two surveys. For April 2024, Household Survey reports 161.031 million employed persons. Establishment Survey reports 155.446 million employed persons. For May 2024, Household Survey reports 160.721 million employed persons. The Establishment Survey reports 155.469 million employed persons. Even if all surveys are truthfully and accurately answered, we do not expect the numbers to be identical between the two surveys for several reasons. First, these are different groups measured. The Household Survey includes self-employed individuals and agricultural workers, which the Establishment Survey does not. The Establishment Survey focuses on businesses and government agencies, providing a detailed look at employment within these sectors. Second, there are measurement errors. All surveys have some degree of measurement error. These can arise from sampling methods, respondent accuracy, and data collection processes. Finally, the survey methodology. Household Survey relies on self-reporting from individuals about their employment status, whereas the Establishment Survey uses payroll data from businesses, which can be more reliable but limited in scope. By considering both surveys, we get a more comprehensive view of the employment landscape. The Household Survey provides a broader picture that includes all types of employment, while the Establishment Survey offers detailed insights from payroll data, which can be more accurate for certain sectors. Together, these surveys help us understand employment trends and to make informed economic decisions. We've now explored various aspects of unemployment and employment, including how these are influenced by gender, ethnicity, race, and education. Understanding these factors is crucial for grasping how employment impacts our lives. For those interested into a deeper dive into employment trends and concepts of job deficits, we've prepared a detailed analysis. This analysis uses data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics covering employment trends since the Great Depression. It explores the PAYEMS dataset and investigates the discrepancies and trends over time. You can find this detailed exploration in our next video, where we walk through the data analysis process, identify significant trends, and discuss the implications for our economy. Stay tuned and watch the next video for a comprehensive understanding of employment trends and the job deficit in the U.S. economy. Hyperinflation is a term used to describe extremely high and typically accelerating inflation. It quickly erodes the real value of the local currency as the prices of all goods increase. In this section, we will explore the hyperinflation period from 2020 to 2024 in the U.S. economy, a unique scenario launched at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic and subsequent economic policies. Hyperinflation happens when the value of the national currency is devalued because of excess money in the economy, which is artificially added without value creation. Just printing more money cannot increase the value. It needs to be linked to a valuable commodity as generated by the companies of the nation. These dollars were simply given to the households. This is a prime example of how the US dollar was devalued in 2020 and 2021. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the U.S. government implemented several stimulus packages to support households and businesses. This involved printing significant amounts of money and distributing it directly to households in an effort to boost consumer spending and stabilize the GDP. While the intention was to save the economy, these actions contributed to unprecedented increase in the money supply. The government's response included substantial financial aid through stimulus checks, enhanced employment benefits, and small business loans. These measures were designed to mitigate the economic impact of lockdowns and social distancing mandates. However, the infusion of such large amounts of cash into the economy without a corresponding increase in the production of goods and services led to an imbalance. Now, this imbalance created conditions ripe for inflation. With more money chasing the same or fewer goods, prices began to rise. The significant increase in the money supply, coupled with disrupted supply chains and reduced economic activity, led to lockdowns, exacerbated the situation, leading to the hyperinflation period we are examining. The role of monetary policy during this period is a critical factor in understanding how the U.S. economy navigated the challenges posed by the pandemic and its aftermath. The COVID-19 pandemic brought unprecedented social distancing mandates, which significantly disrupted everyday life. Governments enforced restrictions on the movement and social interactions, leading to the closures of non-essential businesses, schools, and public spaces. Many people were required to work from home, and large gatherings were prohibited. These measures had a profound impact on consumer spending. With retail stores and service sectors shut down, spending on non-essential goods dropped sharply. People shifted their focus to essential goods and online shopping, leading to an increase in savings rates as they cut back on discretionary purchases. A paradox emerged. While the government injected significant amounts of money into households through stimulus checks and unemployment benefits, fear and uncertainty led many to save rather than spend. This increased money supply, without a corresponding increase in goods and services, created inflationary pressure. The result was an excess of money chasing too few goods, contributing to the hyperinflationary environment we witnessed during this period. The Consumer Price Index, the CPI, is a critical measure of inflation. Between April 2020 and May 2024, the CPI climbed from 256.126 to 313.225, illustrating an inflationary spike. This sharp increase in the CPI highlights the hyperinflation the economy struggled to cope with increased prices. The rapid increase in the CPI during this period was driven by the significant injection of money into the economy without a corresponding increase in the production of goods and services. This resulted in a higher demand for goods and services than what was available, pushing the prices upward. The visual representation of the CPI data helps illustrate the severity of this inflationary period. The Personal Consumption Expenditures, PCE, index also showed a significant increase during this period, climbing from 12.0 to 19.5 billion in under 4 years, making a 61.5% increase. Wow, the PCE reflects changes in the cost of goods and services consumed by households. This rise in PCE, alongside the CPI, underscores the broad impact of inflation on consumer choices and spending behavior. With higher prices, consumers were faced with a tough decision on how to allocate their spending, often having to cut back on essential items. This behavior, in turn, affected overall economic activity and growth, highlighting the interconnected nature of consumer spending and economic health. The COVID-19 pandemic introduced several challenges to the U.S. economy, significantly impacting various sectors. Supply chain disruptions. As the pandemic unfolded, global supply chains faced unprecedented disruptions. Factories shut down, transportation was hindered, and raw materials became scarce. These disruptions led to significant shortages in goods, which in turn drove up prices as demand outstripped supply. Labor market instability. The labor market was severely affected as many people lost their jobs or opted to leave the workforce due to health concerns and safety measures. This created a mismatch between the labor supply and the demand, further complicating economic recovery efforts. Inflationary pressures. The rapid increase in the money supply aimed at stimulating the economy, coincided with these supply shortages. This led to hyperinflation, eroding the purchasing power of the dollar and destabilizing the economy. To address the economic challenges, several policy responses were implemented. Interest rate adjustments. The Federal Reserve adjusted interest rates in an attempt to control inflation. By increasing interest rates, the aim was to reduce the money supply and curb inflationary pressures, thus stabilizing the economy. Stimulus packages. The government introduced multiple stimulus packages to support households and businesses. These packages provided direct financial assistance to individuals and companies, interjecting necessary liquidity into the economy and promoting spending. Supply chain interventions. Efforts were made to resolve supply chain bottlenecks through international cooperation and investment in domestic production capabilities. By enhancing the efficiency of supply chains and increasing the production of critical goods, these measures aimed to mitigate shortages and stabilize prices. In addition to immediate responses, longer-term strategies were also deployed to support economic recovery. Infrastructure investments. Significant investments were made in infrastructure projects. These investments aimed to boost economic growth, create jobs, and enhance the nation's physical and digital infrastructure, providing a foundation for future stability. Support for small businesses. Recognizing the valid role of small businesses in the economy, targeted financial aid and loan programs were introduced. These measures helped sustain employment and provided the necessary support for small businesses to navigate through the crisis. Consumer protection measures. To protect consumers from price gouging and ensure fair market practices, several consumer protection policies were implemented. These measures aimed to maintain market integrity and prevent exploitative practices during times of economic uncertainty. Unemployment analysis in the United States focuses on understanding the causes, measures, and strategies for reducing unemployment. Job creation and unemployment are influenced by various factors, such as economic conditions, global competition, education, automation, and demographics. These factors affect the number of workers, duration of unemployment, and wage levels. During the 1990s, employment expanded consistently due to economic prosperity. However, the early 2000s brought challenges, with significant recessions in 2001 and the significant downturn during 2007 to 2009. These economic disruptions caused fluctuations in the unemployment rate, illustrating the close relationship between economic health and joblessness. A notable event was the COVID-19 recession in 2020, which caused an unprecedented spike in unemployment. Unlike traditional economic cycles, the surge was driven by global health crisis and the resultant lockdowns. Businesses closed, and millions of people lost their jobs almost overnight. The unemployment rate peaked dramatically, illustrating the economy's vulnerability to non-economic factors. Despite these challenges, the U.S. labor market has shown resilience. By some measures, employment levels recovered to pre-2007 recession numbers only by 2014. However, the labor force participation rate has remained below its 2007 level, indicating that not all workers have rejoined the workforce. This highlights the lasting impact of significant economic events. Unemployment generally falls during the periods of economic prosperity and rises during recessions. During good times, businesses expand and hire more workers, reducing unemployment. Conversely, during economic downturns, businesses contract, leading to job losses and higher unemployment. These fluctuations create substantial pressures on public finances as tax revenues fall and social safety net costs increase. The COVID-19 recession particularly underscores the need for robust safety nets and adaptive economic policies to mitigate the effects of such unprecedented events. Understanding the various factors that contribute to unemployment and the importance of employment trends is crucial for developing effective economic strategies. For many people, being unemployed simply means being without a job. However, when we investigate the causes of unemployment, we can categorize them into 3 types: frictional, structural, and cyclical. Now let's take a look. Frictional unemployment is a short-term type of unemployment that arises from the process of matching workers with jobs. It occurs primarily because of job search activities, which include individuals entering or re-entering the labor force, or those who are between jobs. Additionally, frictional unemployment can result from seasonal factors. Certain jobs fluctuate in availability due to seasonal demand, such as positions for ski instructors in winter or farm workers during harvest seasons. To address this, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS, releases both raw and seasonally adjusted employment figures to provide a clearer picture of employment trends. Interestingly, a certain level of frictional unemployment can actually increase economic efficiency. It allows workers the time to find jobs that better match their skills and preferences, leading to better job satisfaction and productivity. Understanding frictional unemployment helps us appreciate the dynamics of the labor market and the natural flow of workers transitioning between roles. Structural unemployment happens when there's a persistent mismatch between workers' skills and job requirements. This can be due to technological advancements, shifts in consumer preferences, or changes in the economy's structure. Workers may need to train or relocate to find new employment opportunities. Cyclical unemployment is caused by business cycle recessions. It occurs when there is not enough demand for goods and services in the economy, leading to a reduction in production and, consequently, a decrease in the need for workers. This type of unemployment fluctuates with the economic cycle, increasing during downturns and decreasing during upswings. In normal recoveries after a recession, unemployment due to cyclical factors will fall. When all unemployment is due to frictional and structural factors, we say that the economy is at full employment. This means there will always be some unemployment in the economy, known as the natural rate of unemployment, which consists of frictional and structural unemployment. The non-accelerating inflation rate of unemployment, or NIRU, is another term for this natural rate of unemployment. Most economists agree that the U.S. natural rate of unemployment is somewhere between 5 and 6%. This concept has a lot to do with expectations. Structural unemployment can affect you as you graduate college and enter the workforce. It is essential to equip yourself with the necessary skills and experiences learned in college to avoid structural unemployment issues. For example, Microsoft offers free MS Office and operating system software to students and professors, knowing that if you graduate proficient in using these tools, employers will be more likely to adopt them in the workplace. However, if you complete your degree without a firm knowledge of how to use the software, despite it being provided free of charge, employers may view this as evidence that you are not technologically adept. This is why I emphasize the importance of the Macroeconomics term report in this class. Use MS Office software with style sheets to create a comprehensive and professional document, including a cover page, title page, table of contents, list of figures, acronyms used, references, and literature cited. I have structured these tasks to help prevent structural unemployment on the day you graduate. I've set up opportunities for your involvement, and now it's up to you to make the most of them. Let's discuss how to categorize unemployment in the context of the COVID-19 recession and its aftermath. The COVID-19 pandemic caused unprecedented disruptions to the global economy, leading to widespread business closures and layoffs. Understanding the types of unemployment experienced during and after such a crisis helps us grasp the economic recovery process better. During the COVID-19 pandemic, many businesses were forced to close temporarily due to lockdown measures and social distancing protocols. This resulted in a sudden spike in unemployment rates. However, as the economy began to reopen and adapt to new safety measures, many of these jobs returned. Here's how we can categorize the types of unemployment observed during this period. The pandemic accelerated technological adoption and changes in business models. Now, for instance, the increased reliance on e-commerce and remote work created a demand for tech-savvy workers and reduced the need for traditional retail staff. Workers who couldn't adapt to these challenges faced structural unemployment. Retraining and upskilling became essential to address this mismatch. As businesses reopened, many workers re-entered the job market, leading to frictional unemployment. This was particularly true for workers who were temporarily laid off and were seeking new opportunities or waiting to be rehired. For example, retail workers for restaurant staff who were in between jobs as the economy transitioned out of lockdown experienced frictional unemployment. The COVID-19 recession highlighted the importance of understanding different types of unemployment. By categorizing unemployment accurately, policymakers can design targeted interventions to support economic recovery. For instance, retraining programs can address structural unemployment, while fiscal stimulus can mitigate cyclical unemployment. In summary, the COVID-19 pandemic caused a mix of cyclical, structural, and frictional unemployment. Understanding these categories helps us appreciate the complexity of economic recovery and the need for diverse strategies to support the workforce. As we move forward, continuous learning and adaptability will be crucial in navigating the evolving job market.
Oh, but you've got to stop before you get to that, because let's keep the discussion orderly. Because you are saying, well, I'm going to take the first effect of the policy and not look at later effects. There is no quarrel or dispute between you and me, or between those who analyze things different ways, that the initial effects of a more expansive policy will be felt in output, not in inflation. The problem is that what you are now dealing with is a hangover from precisely those expansive policies. The argument, the scientific proposition that underlies the view I said is that there's a difference in the time lag between the difference in the time which it takes for expansive monetary or fiscal policy to affect output and the time which it takes to affect inflation. That in the history of the United States and of countries like the United States, it has taken something like 6 to 9 months from a more expansionary policy. In 1975, it was even less than that. It's taken between 6 and 9 months on the average before a more expansionary policy affects output. It increases incomes, and to begin with, that certainly does take the form of more output and more employment. But that's a first effect. We have to carry it all the way through. At the same time, it sets in motion forces which later will come out in inflation, so that the evidence from history for the United States and countries like that is that it takes another 18 months before it comes out in inflation. So if we take those 3 years, inflation actually came down during the first year and a half of the expansion. But it came down as a result of what had happened 2 years earlier. The very monetary restraints that had produced the severe recession had a carryover. And they enabled you for an interim period of a year and a half to have both increasing employment and reduced inflation. But then, beginning in the fall of 76, December 76, you started to get the delayed effects of the more expansionary policies. Now again, if we turn to the other side, which you were going to, of using restrained policy, you will agree that you'll also have those different effects.
As we delve into Section 5.5, we turn our attention to the various ways governments attempt to influence and explain unemployment. Understanding these measures is crucial for grasping the complex dynamics of the labor market. Governments play a pivotal role in managing unemployment through various policies and programs. For instance, the federal government's Trade Adjustment Assistance Program aims to mitigate structural unemployment by offering training to workers laid off due to foreign competition. Such programs help workers to adapt to new industries and technologies, reducing the mismatch between skills and job requirements. To address frictional unemployment, which arises from the time taken to find new jobs, governments often implement policies to speed up the mismatching process between unemployed workers and job vacancies. Subsidies for new hires and job placement services are examples of such measures. However, it's important to recognize that some government policies can inadvertently increase unemployment. Unemployment insurance, for example, provides financial support to unemployed workers, enabling them to maintain some level of income while searching for new jobs. While this reduces personal hardship, it can also prolong the job search process, leading to higher levels of frictional unemployment. In the United States, unemployment insurance typically covers about half of the previous wage for 6 months, though this period can be extended during recessions. Additionally, minimum wage laws, while aimed to add ensuring fair wage for workers, can sometimes result in higher unemployment if businesses reduce hiring due to increased labor costs. In this section, we will explore the impacts of these policies in more detail, examining how they influence both frictional and structural unemployment and the broader implications for the economy. Government policies can have significant impacts on the unemployment rate, either by helping to reduce it or, in some cases, by inadvertently increasing it. Now, let's explore how different policies influence unemployment. Trade Adjustment Assistance (TAA) program. This program is designed to help workers who have lost their jobs due to foreign competition. It offers various forms of assistance, including job training, job search and relocation allowances, and income support while training. By equipping workers with new skills, the TAA aims to reduce structural unemployment. Unemployment insurance. This policy provides temporary financial support to workers who have lost their jobs. While it offers crucial support and helps maintain consumer spending during high unemployment periods, it can also increase frictional unemployment. This occurs because it allows unemployed workers to spend more time searching for a job that matches their skills and preferences, rather than taking the first available job. Minimum wage laws. These laws set the minimum hourly wage that employers can legally pay their workers. While the intention is to ensure that workers earn living wage, if the minimum wage is set too high, it can lead to higher unemployment among low-skilled workers, as employers may not be able to afford as many employees. Job creation programs. Now, during recessions, governments often implement job creation programs to stimulate economic activity and reduce cyclical unemployment. These programs can include infrastructure projects and other government-funded initiatives that create jobs and boost demand in the economy. Retraining and educational programs. By providing training and educational opportunities, these programs help workers acquire new skills that are in demand in the job market. This reduces structural unemployment by ensuring that workers' skills match the needs of employers. Understanding the impact of these policies helps us see the multifaceted approach needed to manage unemployment. While some policies aim to support workers and stimulate the economy, others need careful balancing to avoid unintended consequences that could increase unemployment. In 1938, the federal government enacted the first minimum wage law, setting the wage at 25 cents per hour. Adjusted for inflation, this would be approximately $4.80 in 2024. As of 2024, the federal minimum wage stands at $7.25 per hour. Minimum wage laws aim to help low-income workers by ensuring they receive a base level of income. However, raising the minimum wage can have unintended consequences. When firms are required to pay higher wages, they may respond by hiring fewer workers. This can lead to an increase in unemployment, particularly among groups most likely to earn minimum wage, such as teenagers. Relatively few full-time adults earn minimum wage. The group most likely to be affected are teenagers. The impact of minimum wage laws on unemployment is a subject of debate among economists. Most believe the effect is relatively small. Studies suggest that a 10% increase in the minimum wage would reduce teenage employment by about 2%. It's important to consider the trade-offs when discussing minimum wage policies. While they provide necessary income support for low-wage workers, they can also lead to reduced employment opportunities, particularly for young and unexperienced workers. Understanding these dynamics helps us in creating balanced policies that support workers without significantly harming job prospects. Labor unions are organizations of workers that negotiate collectively with employers to secure higher wages, improved working conditions, and other benefits for their members. In industries where unions are prevalent, wages are typically higher than the market rate. However, this does not necessarily lead to higher unemployment rates because union membership in the private sector is relatively low, at about 9%. Consequently, while unions may raise wages for their members, the overall impact on the broader economy and unemployment rates is limited. An efficiency wage is an above-market wage that firms pay to increase workers' productivity. Efficiency wages are another reason economies experience some unemployment even when cyclical unemployment is low. Consider the efficiency wage from the standpoint of an employer in the natural resources consulting business, me. While operating my own business, I have assembled fantastic people capable of doing meaningful work efficiently and with purpose. I sought people who understand the mission intent, doing what is intended from design to implementation. Efficiency wages were paid not to incentivize performance, but to recognize and reward professionalism while at work. By paying above-market wages, I did not want to encourage employees to perform merely at standards. I wanted people who would overachieve in delivering services, make good decisions, and not spend company time looking for a slightly better paying job. It allowed me to expect them to give an extra effort when needed for the company's good. For instance, employees would accept deployment to remote sites to execute tasks and stay until the job was done right, even if it meant working into the weekend. This saved travel costs for the company and increased the employees' sense of accomplishment and take-home pay. This approach resulted in clients acknowledging the strength of my team, who were always ready to answer the client's questions and even to demonstrate technologies for their staff. Efficiency wages created a win-win situation, boosting both employee satisfaction and client trust. The price level is an important measure in the average prices of goods and services in the economy. The inflation rate, which is the percentage increase in the price level from one year to the next, indicates how much prices are rising over time. To understand the impact of inflation on different sectors of the economy, we use various measures. The most commonly referenced measure is the Consumer Price Index, CPI, which closely tracks the costs of living for a typical household by measuring the changes in the prices of a basket of consumer goods and services. The Producer Price Index, the PPI, measures the average change over time in the selling prices received by domestic producers for their output, giving insights into inflation at the wholesale level. Lastly, the Personal Consumption Expenditure, PCE Index, reflects changes in the prices of goods and services consumed by individuals and is often used by policymakers for its broader scope. By analyzing these indices, we gain a comprehensive understanding of inflationary trends across different areas of the economy. The Consumer Price Index, CPI, Producer Price Index, PPI, and Personal Consumption Expenditures, PCE, Index provides different perspectives on inflation. From 1980 to 2024, these indices have shown varied trends, reflecting changes in economic conditions and consumer patterns. Studying the PCE index, which captures the prices of goods and services consumed by households, on this chart, PCE is presented on the right side axis. The axes are different, so we watch the relative rates of increase in PCE in respect to the CPI and the PPI. In 2008, PCE was below both the CPI and PPI. This trend continued until around 2014, when the PCE surpassed the PPI, indicating a shift in consumption dynamics and price changes experienced by producers. By 2024, the PCE had matched the CPI, highlighting significant change in the cost structure of personal consumption patterns over the past decade. This rise in PCE relative to CPI suggests that consumers are experiencing higher price increases in the goods and services they purchase compared to the broader market basket of goods measured by the CPI. Understanding these trends is essential for policymakers and economists as they analyze inflation's impact on the economy and formulate appropriate monetary and fiscal policies to manage price stability. The Consumer Price Index, CPI, measures the average change over time in the prices paid by urban consumers for a representative basket of goods and services. To construct this index, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS, surveys 30,000 households about their spending habits and uses this information to track changes in the cost of living for the typical urban family of four. Now, let's examine a few notable changes in the CPI components from 2017 to 2024. Medical care. One of the most significant changes is the increase in the share of medical care in the CPI. In 2017, medical care accounted for 7.2% of consumer spending, a relatively small portion of the basket, but now it constitutes a much larger share at 23.8%. This increase reflects the rising costs of healthcare services and medical products over the past few years. As healthcare becomes more expensive, it directly impacts household budgets and can contribute to overall inflation. Housing. Conversely, the proportion of CPI attributed to housing has decreased significantly, from 41.0% in 2017 to 14.2% in 2024. This shift may seem surprising given that housing costs have been a major concern in recent years. However, this decrease reflects a rebalancing of the CPI basket with slower increases in housing costs relative to other expenses. Transportation. The share of transportation in the CPI has also decreased since 2017. This change is due to various factors, such as fluctuations in fuel prices or changes in transportation preferences and expenses. For example, advancements in technology and shifts towards more sustainable transportation options and home office Zoom meetings have influenced these trends. These changes illustrate how the CPI adapts to reflect evolving consumer spending patterns and economic conditions. By understanding these shifts, we can better grasp how inflation affects different aspects of our lives and adjust our economic policies accordingly. The Consumer Price Index, the CPI, is a crucial measure for understanding inflation and the cost of living. To calculate the CPI, we start with a fixed basket of goods and services that a typical urban family of four would purchase. This basket includes items such as food, clothing, shelter, and medical care. Next, we need the cost to purchase the basket of goods in a selected base year. The base year serves as a reference point and is assigned a value of 100. For any subsequent year, the CPI is calculated by taking the cost to purchase the same basket of goods in the current year and dividing it by the cost of the basket in the base year. This ratio is then multiplied by 100 to get the CPI value for the current year. For example, if the basket of goods costs $1,000 in the base year and $1,200 in the current year, the CPI would be calculated as follows. The CPI will equal $1,200 divided by $1,000, quantity times 100, that equals 120. This means that the price level has increased by 20% since the base year. The CPI is often referred to as a cost of living index because it reflects the changes in the cost of maintaining a certain standard of living. By tracking the CPI over time, we can understand how prices are changing and how inflation is affecting the purchasing power of consumers. This information is essential for policymakers, businesses, and individuals when making economic decisions. We can look at these examples of a simplified basket of goods in 1999, 2014, and 2024. Recognize the BLS considers the quantity of each good purchased and the price paid each year. See how holding the quantity of goods constant through time gives a representation of the changes in prices paid by consumers. Using the math shown here, you can measure how prices have changed from one year to the next. The base year quantity is held constant, making a bit of a bias in the data collection process. Now, eye exams, pizzas, and books, good selections of products. But think about 1999 and the availability of personal communication devices at that time. Personally, in the early 1990s, I used repeater-based two-way radio and a bag phone for emergency purposes. I knew where all the payphones were located, so I could call whenever needed. Does anyone today even know what a payphone was? We did. While working overseas in a remote-looking camp, I used a satellite phone that looked like a laptop computer aimed at a satellite to make phone calls around the world. Were these in the BLS market basket of goods in 1999? Well, probably not, and they definitely are not now. The current quantity and price of a typical personal communication device today, a smartphone, is still not yet in their market basket of goods, making a new product bias. Well, maybe it's time for the BLS to play some catch-up. Another challenge of the market basket of goods is the ease of consumers to switch from one product to a substitute because of price changes. Substitution bias. When the price of beef goes up, people demand more chicken, if that price stays constant. If the price of chicken then goes up, then the demand for fish goes up. The basket of goods gives good indication of price changes, but it is not a perfect measure of the cost of living. The Consumer Price Index, the CPI, is widely used to measure consumer inflation. However, it is crucial to understand that the CPI might not always provide a fully accurate picture due to several biases. 1. A substitution bias. As prices change, consumers may alter their purchasing habits, opting for less expensive alternatives. For instance, if the price of beef rises, people might switch to more chicken instead. The CPI does not fully account for this shift. 2. Increase in quantity bias. Over time, products like cars and electronics have improved significantly in quality. The CPI struggles to separate the part of the price increase that reflects pure inflation from the part that reflects these quality improvements. New product bias. The CPI basket of goods is updated only once every 10 years. This delay means that new products such as the latest smartphones or other tech innovations are not included promptly, which can distort the inflation measurement. 4. Outlet bias. The CPI does not fully capture the changes of where people shop. With more consumers purchasing from discount retailers like Costco or online platforms, which often offer lower prices, the CPI may overstate the actual cost of living by using full retail prices. Because of these biases, economists generally believe that the CPI overstates true inflation by about 0.5 to 1 percentage point. Recognizing these limitations helps us better interpret CPI data and understand the nuances of measuring inflation accurately. I spoke about most of these, but the outlet bias needs a mention because the BLS does not include big outlet stores, like Costco. In addition to the GDP deflator and the CPI, another key measure of inflation is the Producer Price Index, the PPI. The PPI tracks the average change over time in selling prices received by domestic producers for their output. It includes prices at all stages of production, from raw materials to finished goods. The PPI is conceptually similar to the CPI in that it uses a basket of goods and services, but the basket for the PPI consists of items used by producers rather than consumers. This distinction makes the PPI a valuable tool for predicting future movements in consumer prices. For businesses, the PPI is particularly important as it reflects changes to the cost of inputs and can signal inflationary pressures before they reach the consumer market. For example, an increase in the PPI often leads to subsequent rise in the CPI as higher production costs are passed on to consumers in the form of higher prices for finished goods and services. In my experience, monitoring the PPI to provide critical insights into the business environment, helping to anticipate cost changes that can affect profit margins and pricing strategies. Understanding the PPI allows businesses to make informed decisions about inventory, contracts, and investments to better navigate the economic fluctuations. Price indices give us a way of adjusting for the effects of inflation so that we can compare dollar values from different years. Economic variables that are calculated in current year prices are referred to as nominal variables. To correct for the effects of inflation, we can multiply a nominal variable by the fraction of the CPI price index with current date CPI value in the numerator and past CPI in the denominator to obtain the real value, that is, one that is stated in current terms. In this case, put the $25,000 per year income in 1987 on par with the $69,476 per year salary today, with inflation factored out. We would call the $25,000 a year salary the nominal wage, because that was what was paid on the date of transaction. When inflation is factored out and it becomes $69,476, it is called a real wage amount and referenced for what the real date is, in this case, April 2024. The effects of freezing wages can have consequences for employees and the company. Keep real wages in context of what you can do with your earnings. The Consumer Price Index, CPI, is an essential tool for adjusting nominal values to reflect real purchasing power over time. The current standard base year for the CPI is an average of 1982 through 1984 prices, set to an index of 100. To compare real wages over time, we need to convert nominal wages, that is, current year dollars, to real wages, constant dollars. This adjustment accounts for inflation and shows the true value of wages in terms of purchasing power. Let's consider an example. Suppose employees signed a contract in 2020, freezing their wages at $30 per hour. To understand the impact of inflation, we need to adjust this nominal wage to reflect 2024 dollars. In 2020, the CPI was 260. We estimate the CPI in 2024 to rise to 280. To find the equivalent value of the 2020 wage in 2024 dollars, we adjust the nominal wage using the ratio of the CPIs. $30 times 260 divided by 280. That equals $27.86. This calculation shows that the $30 per hour wage in 2020 is equivalent $27.86 per hour in 2024 real dollars. This adjusted value reflects for the reduced purchasing power due to inflation, illustrating the impact of a wage freeze over time. The real wage has effectively decreased, highlighting the importance of considering inflation in long-term wage agreements. When you lend money to someone, they typically agree to pay back with interest. Suppose you lend $1,000 to a friend at an interest rate of 6%. After 1 year, they will pay you back $1,060. This 6% is known as the nominal interest rate, the stated interest rate on a loan. However, during that year, prices of goods and services will have likely increased due to inflation. Hey, let's say inflation was 2%. This means that the purchasing power of your $1,060 is less than it was at the beginning of the year. To find the real interest rate, you subtract the inflation rate from the nominal interest rate. That is, 6% minus 2%, that equals 4%. So, even though you received $1,060, the value of that money in terms of purchasing power only increased by 4%. A practical example. Imagine you are planning to save for a new laptop that costs $1,000 today. You decide to invest your money in a savings account with an interest rate of 5%. After 1 year, you will have $1,050 in your account. But if inflation is 3% during that year, the price of the laptop might increase to $1,030. That is, the real interest rate equals 5% minus 3%, which is 2%. While you have more money nominally, the real value of your savings has only increased by 2%, which is a better reflection of your purchasing power. In summary, understanding the difference between nominal and real interest rates is crucial for making informed financial decisions. It helps borrowers and lenders see the true cost of borrowing and the real return on lending, accounting for the eroding effects of inflation. While it might seem that inflation is merely an adjustment in prices and wages that cancels out over time, the reality is more complex. Inflation can indeed be problematic due to its uneven effects on different groups within the economy. Income redistribution. Inflation does not affect everyone equally. People with long-term fixed income contracts, such as pensions or fixed wages, find their purchasing power eroding over time. Conversely, those whose incomes can adjust more rapidly to inflation, such as business owners or those with inflation-indexed wages, might see their purchasing power increase. Wealth redistribution. Inflation diminishes the value of nominal assets like cash. Individuals holding substantial wealth in cash or cash equivalents lose purchasing power. In contrast, those with assets in stocks, real estate, or other inflation-resistant investments may fare better. Anticipated versus unanticipated inflation. If inflation is anticipated, individuals and businesses can plan accordingly, adjusting contracts and saving strategies to mitigate its impact. However, unanticipated inflation catches everyone off guard, leading to inefficient outcomes and arbitrary redistribution of wealth and income. When inflation is anticipated, it still leads to several issues despite being expected. One significant problem is the increase in real costs of holding cash. Since paper money loses value over time with inflation, people and firms attempt to minimize their cash holdings to preserve purchasing power. Additionally, firms face what is known as menu costs. These are the costs associated with frequently changing prices. For example, restaurants need to print new menus and retailers have to update price tags and advertising materials. These adjustments are not only costly but also inconvenient for both firms and consumers who must keep up with these changes. Another issue arises with taxes. Investors are taxed on nominal returns rather than real returns, meaning that the inflationary loss in purchasing power isn't accounted for in the tax code. As a result, the effective tax burden can be higher during periods of inflation, impacting the real returns on investments. These problems illustrate that even anticipated inflation imposes real costs on the economy, affecting everyone from individuals to large firms and investors. Menu costs refer to the costs associated with changing prices. Traditionally, this involved the physical act of printing new catalogs, price tags, and menus. For instance, If a restaurant or a retailer needed to update their prices due to inflation, they would incur costs of reprinting menus or catalogs, which makes prices sticky or slow to change. This stickiness can lead to discrepancies in pricing and delays in reflecting the current market conditions. In the era of digital transformation, many businesses have mitigated these costs through the adoption of online sales and digital pricing systems. Unlike 30 years ago, prices on e-commerce platforms can be updated overnight with minimal cost, allowing businesses to respond quickly to inflation and market changes. Unanticipated inflation can lead to significant economic distortions. For instance, during 2023-24, inflation rates surged to around 18%, prompting banks to charge high nominal interest rates on home loans, sometimes exceeding 20%. Although borrowers initially agreed to these high rates due to the relatively low real interest rate, that is, nominal rate minus inflation, they faced severe consequences if inflation rates decrease. For example, if inflation drops to 5%, those who secured home loans at 20% nominal interest rate are left paying a 15% real interest rate, which significantly increases their financial burden. Conversely, in periods of low inflation, such as in 2016, when qualified borrowers could obtain fixed-rate home loans at nominal interest rates as low as 3.9%, the real interest rate was also low. If inflation rises to 4%, these borrowers benefit because the real interest rate turns slightly negative, effectively reducing the cost of their loan in real terms. This situation illustrates how unanticipated inflation can either advantage or disadvantage borrowers, depending on the direction of the inflation changes. Overall, unpredictable inflation introduces significant risk to the borrowing and lending processes, making it difficult for both parties to make informed and beneficial financial decisions. Deflation is far more dangerous for an economy than inflation. Let's consider an example. Suppose you're thinking about buying a car. If you know the car will be cheaper next year, you might decide to delay your purchase. While this might seem like a smart financial decision for you, if everyone follows the same logic, it leads to significant reduction in consumer spending. When many purchases are postponed, firms reduce production because of lower demand. This reduction in production leads to layoffs and increased unemployment. As more people become unemployed, overall spending in the economy decreases further, leading to a vicious cycle of reduced demand, lower production, and rising unemployment. The scenario played out during the Great Depression in the USA in the 1930s and Japan in the 1990s. In the USA, the economy is still recovering from the 2007-09 Great Recession, and current observations of dropping Producer Price Index (PPI) rates are closely monitored by economists to assess the risks of deflation and ensure timely interventions if needed. In this video, we explored various aspects of inflation, its impacts, and important economic indicators. We discussed the Consumer Price Index (CPI), the Producer Price Index (PPI) as key measures of inflation, highlighting their uses and limitations. We examined the differences between anticipated and unanticipated inflation, understanding how each affects the economy differently. We delved into a case study of hyperinflation in the U.S. economy from 2020 to 2024, initially driven by the COVID-19 pandemic and government interventions. This period saw significant increases in the CPI and PCE, demonstrating the inflationary pressures on the economy. Additionally, we touched upon the dangers of deflation, where falling prices can lead to reduced consumer spending and economic stagnation. We also differentiated between nominal and real interest rates, emphasizing the importance of adjusting for inflation in financial decisions. Finally, we addressed common misconceptions, noting that many economic indicators are derived from sample data, and understanding the causes of unemployment remains critical for economic analyses. These insights into inflation and economic indicators are crucial for making informed financial and business decisions, helping us navigate economic challenges more effectively.